Hey folks, this is Colin Richards, president and founder of Lord and Richards. And I'm talking to people just like you every single day in our offices and out in the community, and they're really concerned that events that are going on in their world, our world, are going to mess up their retirement, going to have a negative impact on their finances and their future. And for good reason, right? We've got volatility in the markets. We've got volatility in the political spectrum. We've got wars. We've had massive storms this year. It's just been an incredible year for volatility. And so often, as people talk to me, one of the areas that they're concerned about is the area of elections and the impact that that's going to have on their retirement future. And so what we do at Lord & Richards, in spite of all this volatility, is we help you build a plan. We come alongside you. You're the hero of the story here. And we help you develop a written plan to achieve financial independence. And that's so you can retire without worry. And then the result is you can do amazing things with the resources God's put at your disposal for those around you and for yourself. That's really what we're all about. And in this segment, we're going to talk about what is the impact traditionally of elections. Whether the party you wanted is in office or not in your particular market, it can be really frustrating. And there have been studies done on what it means to have a Democratic Congress or a Republican Congress, what it means to have a Democratic president or a Republican president in light of our markets and how they perform. Now, listen, at Lord & Richards, we don't bet our clients' retirement future on the progress of the market. We use, in addition to market strategies, we use safe, risk-free strategies that form the backbone of your strategy, your plan, and allow you then in those strategies that are in the market to have less fear and anxiety. And we're going to talk about that in our next segment on how to create an economic bubble around you and your family so you're insulated against some of this stuff. But what has been the impact of elections? How concerned should we be, whether it's a midterm election or a presidential election? Well, think back a couple years ago when Biden took office. At the time, he proposed over $7 trillion in new government spending over the decade to come. And he coupled that with a $4 trillion tax increase to pay for some of it. Really, it was an incredible slap across the face of the American people, as he basically said, we're going to spend ourselves into prosperity after all the other spending that we've been doing, and we're going to siphon it off of you, the American people. Well, fortunately, because of some obstinate senators, his tax proposals never made it through. Whew, we can breathe a sigh of relief on that, but we're still in danger. The same president's in office, and it all depends on the agenda in the next couple of years, what's going to happen to our taxes. So taxes is an area of volatility. But what we saw when those tax cuts didn't come through is such a sigh of relief from the markets, and we saw a great spiral up in 21. And then as the reality set in, costs went up, as we realized inflation was now out of control because of horrible government policies. Then our markets began to crash in response to it. And we've been dealing with that all through 2022. So what does it look like going forward? Well, I don't have a crystal ball. Mine shorted out this morning. Rats. I thought I'd have it for this particular segment. But what I do have is the history that's been done. And Kiplinger did a great study on this called How Presidential Elections Affect the Stock Market. And they don't just deal with presidents, but also with Congress. What happens with a Republican or a Democratic Congress. And since 1930, the Dow Jones has gained an average of 10% in a president's first year and 7.9% in the second. So not bad over all presidents. The year before the election is the strongest, averaging 13.3. And when you're actually in the election year, it's pretty low, about 5.4. So here's a question. What's the impact if we have, say, a Democratic president and a Republican Congress or a split Congress? Well, interestingly, both are very similar. Average annual return since 1933, when we had a Democratic president and a split Congress or a Republican Congress, are between 13 and 14%. I'd put that in the high end of the category. The other area where we see similar performance when we have a Democratic president and a split or Republican Congress is when Republicans sweep, right? They've got both houses of Congress. They've got the White House. Then also we're seeing about a 13% average annual return. So those are all the best scenarios, right? What are the worst scenarios? Basically, when you have a Republican president and he doesn't have control of Congress. That's the bottom line. When a Republican president is frustrated and doesn't have control of Congress, we see average returns of more like 5 to 6%. And when Democrats are in power across the board, only about 9%. So the weakest scenarios are Democrats in power or a Republican president who doesn't have control over the Congress. The strongest markets that we're going to see are when we have a Democratic president with either a Republican Congress or a split Congress, or Republicans just control it across. So you just vote according to what average annual return you want to experience over the next couple of years. But what does this mean for us? What does this really mean? Well, what it means is there's a lot of myths about what's going to happen to the market based on politics. The reality is politics are not as tied in as closely to the markets as we might think. And you and I have both seen it, where it seems like all the news is bad for you on the political front, and yet your portfolio is prospering. Or everything's just looking rosy and laws are getting passed that you're in favor of and your portfolio is tanking, right? There's so much more at work. And predicting the direction of the market based on an election is really a fool's errand. Here's what you need to do. What you need to do is you need to hunker down and you need to develop a plan so that you're not negatively impacted if you get one of those bad combinations, right? If we see a major market drop like we've seen in 2022. And my question is always this. We've been through this before. The markets have dropped severely in the past. We can go all the way back, 1987, 2000, 2008. All of those were lessons that we learned. And my question to you is, did you learn the lesson? Before we came into 2022, were you positioned so that you did not experience severe losses in your portfolio? If not, it's time to take a step. It's time to put in place a written plan. You know what they say about goals that you never write down? The odds of success are low. The goals that you write down, sometimes the success ratio is 10 times those of unwritten goals. And so what we do at Lord & Richards is we come alongside of you and we help you build that plan to address risk in advance before the markets fall. And we test your current portfolio to see, are you prepared? Are things in shape? Or if the next market crash comes along, will it take you with it? And then we develop a plan so that from this point forward, you can achieve and maintain financial independence. It really just starts with a simple phone call. I'd love to chat with you. My advisors at Lord & Richards would love to talk to you about how to take control of your financial future, invest for retirement without worry.